Thank you for everyone that is online with us today, as well as those of you watching the recording. Today we're going to be going through EDI integration made simple with Microsoft Dynamics. And my name is Brian Lynch, and I'm the Business Development Manager at Data Masons. And I have been working with EDI actually over 17 years now, and specifically within the Microsoft Dynamics community. And Data Masons as an organization has been a proud partner with BCS, for lots of years. And typically how we're working together is for those organizations who want to trade electronically with customers, suppliers, etc. And so with our 1,000+ customers over our 19-year history, that is an area that we help each and every day. Now, in our time together, I've prepared an agenda where we're going to go over a little bit of an EDI 101, including various types of EDI solutions, talk through the pros and cons of the various models, and in particular, how Data Masons has made EDI simple and effective for other BCS customers. I'm also going to talk through a little bit of tips. I know that we have some of the various platforms on the line, as well as folks using Dynamics today and others that are maybe new to Dynamics. Time permitting, we'll also kind of go through a quick demonstration of the solution, and then we'll open up the line for any question and answers. So as far as EDI, EDI at its most basic definition, electronic data interchange, is really the computer-to-computer transmission of key supply chain documents. And so typically when someone says the words EDI to you, they're often implying a standard such as here in North America X12, i.e. you may hear things like 850 purchase order, 856 advanced ship notices, but it could also mean other standards. Internationally, you'll have things like EDIFACT, Tradecom, and then you also have some of the substandards like VIX, UCS, depending on what industries that you're in. Now, typically, when you're looking to add a EDI program, it generally goes around the notion of compliance. So, for instance, your business partners may be asking for it, typically because of cost savings. And if you think about a paper world, just the physical paper itself, the labor involved with the data entry and the physical transmission. But you also get into the notion of speed and accuracy. How often have we been at the computer and, accidentally miskeyed a date or an individual quantity? And so, you've asked for 100 units to show up, and oh my goodness, 1,000 have showed up. The additional freight costs, the labor for picking the product, receiving the product, and so that accuracy becomes very, very critical. And then just overall, the efficiency gained with electronic trading, such as reducing the order-to-cash cycle, allowing your team to manage by exception. And so oftentimes, an EDI program allows you to onboard, that new customer that you're trying to go after, or go into additional demographics, new regions that, again, previously maybe would have taken a much larger staff to be able to process. So this is really the benefits of an EDI program. Now, when you look at the different types of workflows, within Dynamics, one of the more common entities to trade with may be your customers. And so when you think of maybe, for instance, large national accounts, a Walmart, an Amazon, depending on what industries that you're in, a lot of times your customers are going to be asking you to receive in their purchase orders, i.e. your sales orders, so that you can then start to begin the pick, pack, ship process. Now, within that, they may also want you to acknowledge the order. Was the price correct? Are you going to be able to ship on time? Those types of details. And then as you physically pick, pack, and ship the product, they may want to send back what's called an advanced shipping notice, or often referred to simply as an ASN. And the value of this would be to help them automate their receiving process, because now they know, hey, we've got a truck coming in later today that's going to have 5 pallets on it. Inside of pallet number 4 are 60 boxes. Inside of box number 37 are these contents. So it gets pretty detailed in regards to the information that you can exchange. We obviously want to complete the cycles with sending out invoice information, and then once they pay, sending back payment remittance details. But beyond this order to cash cycle, we also can get into things like routing requests, catalogs. Any of you that are supporting dropship programs, a lot of times your customers want to know your current inventory levels, to reduce backorder statuses, but also just to make sure that those items are up on the website, for instance, where they can be displayed. But as you can see from this graphic, probably maybe about the 15 top customer documents that organizations may want to trade. But when you go beyond especially over the last 5 to 10 years, I've really seen a lot of trending around organizations wanting to automate with their carriers. If you think about, for instance, small parcel, a lot of tracking numbers, shipment statuses that may occur as you get into less than truckload or full truckload shipments. The status of the truck, has it been picked up, has it been loaded, various statuses, freight invoices. And then as you kind of get into the green area here, a lot of organizations are also outsourcing their fulfillment to third-party warehouse providers, or 3PLs. And so oftentimes these organizations need to send out picking tickets of orders that they've received, maybe via EDI, but it also could have been their website or their call center. It really doesn't matter how the order got into Dynamics. We're going to go ahead and use EDI to facilitate the sending of the picking instructions. The warehouse gets those instructions, executes their work, ships the product out, and a lot of times they're going to send back to you quantity fulfillment details. And so including in that maybe details such as serial or lot or batch details, depending on the nature of your products. You can also do things like inventory levels, inventory adjustments, warehouse transfers. Maybe you've got product coming in from your vendors or from another warehouse, and so that receiving process that the warehouse is going to go through, you can give them a heads up of what's coming. They can then confirm back to you what has actually shipped. And in another area that we're seeing a lot of trending on is the notion of suppliers, as we can kind of see in orange here. And really this is somewhat the reverse of what you're doing on the customer side, where now you're issuing sales or purchase orders and receiving back shipment and invoice and PO acknowledgement details. But these are some of the more common workflows that we see automated. And again, that notion of whether it's a true EDI or other formats such as XML or flat files can sometimes come into play. And so with that, if you've never seen, EDI or some of the other formats, again, it's really meant to be a computer-to-computer exchange. And so as we can see on the left-hand side column, native X12 is basically a lot of codes. Something like that second entry BEG, for those of us old-timers that have been around EDI, we know that's the beginning segment. We know the purchase order date. We know that that's a standard standalone purchase order that's coming in. We can see that Bob Smith is the ordering person, and we're starting to get into address information. But it's a pretty concise set of codes that gives us that instructions. Well, those same exact details can also be represented in other formats and syntax. And so kind of in the middle in light gray, we can now see an XML equivalent of this X12 details. So here, we're starting to blend the notion of computer to computer to also potentially be, human readable. And so we can see the seller, the PO date, the PO number, the PO type. And so, as an individual person, we can read this information and at the same token, be able to have our systems read the details. And then lastly, to the right, is basically the notion of a flat file. This may be a positional file, it may be a delimited file. For instance, one very common is the notion of a comma or tab delimited. Maybe we've got the details in Excel and we're saving those out. The value of standards, which you'll see here in a moment, is that we have two people speaking the same language. And so, for instance, we want to both be able to understand that the PO date is actually the PO date, because if we had something just date, well, is that the cancel date, the delivery date, the do not ship before date, and so you can start to get into some uncertainty. EDI standards and compliance guidelines, make sure that both parties are basically on the same page. And so with that, the specifications, oftentimes when you go to work with a new business partner, depending on who the customer is in the relationship, they may publish out what's often referred to as their trading partner specifications or EDI guidelines. And this documentation goes through the notion of what documents are supported. And so, for instance, yes, we are going to do a purchase order, we are going to do an ASN, we are going to do an invoice, etc. It's also going to get into the notion of the rules within the documents. So, for instance, within the standards, a PO must at minimum have one line item. It must have a price. It must have a unit of measure. But the notion of a reference field, such as a department number or a vendor number, may be optional. And by the way, it is optional, but if you send it, then it must be characters only, and it must be at least a 10-digit value. So all of those rules come into play. You also get into the area of communication. How does this EDI document physically get from point A to point B? You have services such as value-added networks, or VANs, that were very common years ago. We also have really seen over the last 10 years, and really with the advancement in the internet and security protocols, the notion of direct communication. And so technologies at play there may be standards like AS2, but you also have FTP, file transfer protocol, and some other means. Value of the direct communication is it often eliminates the per document charges associated with a value-added network. And so just understanding the various options of communication, if any, will help to make sure that you pick the right solution for you. And then lastly, and unfortunately, because of how critical these EDI messages are, making sure that everyone is in compliance it becomes very critical, because again, that notion of errors can be very costly to both organizations. And so you sometimes have again what's called chargebacks or non-compliance fines, and basically where you weren't following the instructions and requirements of the vendor guidelines. Now, in this particular picture, I've actually kind of copied off Walmart, and so those of you that have looked at a purchase order, it's not really too complicated. There's ship to, ship from, line item details, and some other information. But for Walmart, and quite frankly for other accounts, it takes 120 pages to describe how to facilitate a purchase order. And so times that by the number of documents that you're doing with Walmart, times that by the number of business partners that you're trading with, and EDI can be a little bit of intimidation in the sense of taking care of all the technical aspects of EDI compliance, and really where again outsourcing EDI has gained a lot of the traction is for instance our organization, we get up each and every day focused exclusively on EDI, and so we have experts that have been doing this for a long time and can kind of help through these various areas for you. So with that, what are the types of EDI solutions that are out there, and why has BCS partnered with Data Masons for their customers? And so let's talk through that a little bit. We can see kind of in this first column here the notion of web forms. And so web forms may be an area where you're doing low volume. You've got this first business partner who has indicated they want to trade electronically with you, but you really don't have a lot of systems in place. They may put up a website portal whereby you can log in, look at your orders, print them off, rekey them into your dynamic system for inbound documents, and then as you start to do outbound documents, maybe a ship notification or an invoice, you're basically rekeying those details into their system. And so this can work, again, really ideally meant for low volume, low partner count, again, no integration, and the notion of the cost is quote unquote free in that you're just simply taking labor to enter this information in. But again, the downside is that if your volume starts to spike up, you're really doing dual entry, one on their website and two within your dynamics. And so that really does not necessarily work for a lot of organizations. And so you then kind of can step up into the middle columns, one where, hey, in the traditional translation tool, we'll buy a system, we'll build our own EDI, and, we'll go through and take on that technical exercise. Systems like Gentran would come to mind, and basically, again, oftentimes there's limited integration or custom integration that you're looking to build. And then you also have the notion of software as a service, where you may have a provider who's starting to consolidate some of these web forms for you. Again, generally lower volume, multiple partners, very basic integration. It, for instance, may not automate the process, but instead of having to key in every single order, at least now I can click on a button, a sales order will appear in GP, but now I'm going to look through, boy, did the price come in correctly? Did the warehouse come in correctly? Boy, did I need to reassign the batch number? And so, you're still pretty heavily involved with the overall process, but, a lot of the core data entry has been minimized for you. You still have some things that you'll need to do on the outside. And then, again, with the notion of managed solution, which is what Data Mason specializes in, we're really looking for a more automated process, management by exception, where we have pre-built integrations with all of those documents that we talked about earlier with the slides, such as ASNs and invoices and PO acknowledgments, etc. And you can purchase that upright. You can also go through more of a monthly cost, depending on some of your financial and cash flow goals. So again, just some options out there, and again, how those might compare and contrast. So if you're doing EDI today, and if you think about those 4 different approaches to EDI, there's some recommendations that we would have for you to consider. And so one of the things that we often see is that the dynamics itself, as you start to do upgrades, especially around integrated EDI, they're often difficult, they're expensive, they're not leveraging some of the new functionality that Microsoft has created. And so ultimately this gets into chargeback situations, expensive customizations that's really not adding a lot of value to your overall process. You also can find that the solution's not handling all of the different file types. And so, yes, it might be helping with EDI here in North America, but it's not supporting, for instance, Edifact as you start to get more international, or XML or flat files, for potentially some smaller organizations that do want to trade electronically with you, but just maybe don't support the formal EDI standards. You get onto the partner onboarding process. And so, you just landed that large national accounts, and unfortunately it's taken weeks or months, to get that partner into production, when the expectation was, that they wanted you to start to ship products in a much more consolidated time frame. EDI support is lacking or split among different partners. And so a lot of times, for instance, with hosted EDI options, they're not really focused on dynamics and really some of the specifics of integration. And so depending on who they have partnered with to do that, that may be a challenge in regards to who do I call and for what different aspects. Performance and locking issues, again, chargebacks, and in particular transaction fees. We see organizations who maybe start off because they had one customer or they're shipping to distribution centers and stores, and lo and behold, they now start to take on a drop ship program, and the volume just significantly changes. And so what once was 50 cents, $1 a document, which was manageable, now all of a sudden is extremely expensive. And so being able to communicate directly, for instance, eliminates those types of issues. And then lastly, just the automation is not optimal or existent, and so the users are having to quote unquote click the buttons where the system should have the intelligence to go ahead and automate the process. And so, what's been Data Mason's approach? How have our customers, leveraged dynamics in our solution? Is first off, it is a solution. It's not a tool set where you have to go through and build all the components or add a lot of technical burden. We're there to support the full entire EDI process, as well as give you options if there's certain elements that you want to take on yourself. We in particular do not customize and force customizations upon dynamics, and so this is very helpful and critical during upgrades, but also in regards to just some of the compliance with the various documents that you may need to do. And so, for instance, our ability to natively out of the box integrate over 60 different transaction types and documents become very critical. Not only are we doing the basics of POs and invoices, but how are we dealing with returns? How are we dealing with debit credit memos, etc. And with our team, it's very important, not only to understand EDI, but more importantly, maybe understand dynamics itself. And so, being able to be there and have that expertise. Flexibility, EDI, again, is automating what you can do manually. What you can do manually can change over time, and so you need a system that is flexible. And lastly, you want to make sure that all of that is automated so that, you're not having to babysit the solution. The solution should be reaching out to you, when there are exceptions. So the other component, I think, is the flexible business model. And so as it gets into communication choices, for instance, that ability to trade directly, I've had organizations where we've literally helped save 6 figures a year. And if you think about that, that money could be reinvested into the business to grow versus, per document fees. The notion of mapping and keeping up with Walmart, Amazon, etc. A lot of our customers, we do that for them. That's provided over the cloud, keeps them in sync, kind of like a Windows update. Walmart's new version is out. The system detects that and downloads it. And then again, the ability to manage the services and the mapping, where again, you're not taking on that large technical burden. So for those of you that are also considering Dynamics upgrade, for instance, we've got Dynamics Nav 2015, GP 2015. These are areas which is a great time for you to reach out, if you haven't already, to talk with BCS in regards to not only the things that are working with you today for Dynamics, but maybe some opportunities, because again, Microsoft is literally investing billions of dollars into the Dynamics platform, and the user base that you are a part of the family of, take advantage of some of that functionality. And again, this may be a perfect time to potentially explore switching out your overall EDI systems. So with that, we've got a few minutes here before we kind of open up to Q&A. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and present the desktop here, and we're just going to kind of show basically the Dynamics system here. And so here on the screen, I now have opened up Vantage Point 2012. And so this is the client that we potentially would be using to interact with. Again, with the scheduler system, this is all turned off. And so what would happen is Vantage Point is simply listening for the various transactions to flow in and out of the overall system, connecting us to Dynamics for those various entities that we need to trade with. And so oftentimes, we might load our various customers, warehouses, suppliers, and so we're going to keep in sync with those partners that we're electronically trading with. Under each of those partners, we're going to detail out basically the various documents that we may need to trade with. And so, for instance, here with Target, what are those transactions that I need to trade with them? What's the method of communication? What are the mappings and rules that need to be assigned? A lot of times for our customers, we're going to set all of this up for them. Again, you do have the ability to do this on your own. And then once set up, we're going to be able to keep all of that up to date and synchronized over a secure internet fashion. But armed with the documents that we're trading, with the scheduling, we're actually able to automate the integration within Dynamics. And so, for instance, within Dynamics GP, we may be automating things like a sales order. And so that sales order, if I sign into the platform, if I look at a sales transaction entry window, with that, I'm typically going to automate the fact that it is actually an order, with that, being able to go through, indicate the details for that, what customer, what items, the batch IDs, the things that normally we would have had to key into the overall system. We're going to now use Dynamics, go through our pick, pack, ship process. EDI in the background is listening for those events and maybe sending out things like an outbound purchase order, an advanced ship notice, an invoice, and other details. So those are how the two systems kind of work hand in hand. We have on our website a guideline, kind of a checklist that you can kind of go through that basically will walk an organization, through just some questions that you may want to ask. And so as you go through those areas, we would encourage you to use the website to basically, go through that checklist. Is it managed services? Do they support the various transactions? And again, just some things that we covered here today that you may find valuable in in your research. And so with that, I'll just throw up my contact information again. Definitely please reach out to your contacts at BCS or myself. We're more than happy to answer any questions that you have.